Hey guys, welcome back. Joe Brunsman, insurance broker to the stars. Today, a much bigger deal than I think is being reported. If LPL is co-managing your clients, who owns the breach now and what do I think you should do about it? Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, this is a big deal. LPL is not some random company. They're the largest independent broker dealer in the United States. They've got 32,000 advisors, trillions in assets, 8 million clients. So if you're an MSP and you're working with financial services firms, there's a real chance that this will impact you. And I know that there's going to be some LPL affiliate advisors watching this. So I want you to kind of understand what's going on here and why this is such a big deal for your MSP and how you can kind of work with them to make this as smooth as possible. Now, why is LPL doing this? It's important that you understand the background of what's happening here. Otherwise, you're just going to keep banging your head against the wall and you're not going to understand what's happening. Now, back in November of 2025, malware in a phishing message compromised some advisors' devices, resulted in third-party access to client accounts, and about 1,500 clients had unauthorized trades and transfers. Now, that's just 1,600. Remember, they've got 8 million total. So they probably looked at this and said, oh my gosh, the stove is hot. We better start doing something about this. Now, the advisor's device, that was the bad guy's front door. That's how he got in here. Now, LPL, in my opinion, they're somewhat ham-fistedly trying to close that door in a way that really just screws everything up. But there's more to this. Now, mandates, what are they actually asking for? NinjaOne, CrowdStrike, LPL Business Browser. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's mandated as of July 1. So as of this video, that's a little over 30 days away. Now, from what I have seen, what I've heard other MSPs put out there, this is not optional. It is not phased. It is non-negotiable. They are demanding this happen. I'll give you some tools here a little bit later on maybe some ways you can push back at that and get some clarification. But they've had compliance issues in the past and they don't want to deal with this. Nearly 200 regulatory events, over 150 million penalties since 2000. Remember that FINRA and SEC, they've been pushing hard on cybersecurity, and LPL is obviously a very, very large target for them. Obviously, LPL does not want to be getting caught with their pants down. Now, what we're seeing is that pressure from FINRA and SEC, it's flowing downhill. So the intent of this, I think, is actually legitimate. I think that LPL probably thinks they're doing the right thing. They're just going about it, in my humble opinion, as a random guy on the internet, completely the wrong way. Now, if you're an MSP, you got to think, hey, what about your MSA? What about your SOW? What about your acceptance of risk? How is all of this going to be weighed out? Because this complicates things dramatically. Now, the best public agreement I could find, it said available terms cap their limit of liability at $1,000 for all claims. And this was their terms of use for electronic products and services. This is just what I was able to find online. Hasn't been updated. I don't know if you're an MSP watching this. Go to your client with LPL, tell them to pull that agreement. If you're an LPL advisor, send that agreement to your MSP so they can take a look at it. This is what I found here. So maximum aggregate limit of liability of LPL suppliers, blah, 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 regardless of the form of such claim, shall be $1,000. Now, remember, they've got 32,000 LPL affiliated advisors. So 32,000 times 1,000 is a lot of money at the end of the day. But per advisor, that is not a lot of money whatsoever. That is, the first 10 minutes of a cyber event. So that's not a great look there. Now, if you're an MSP, I think all of this can just be boiled down to this. So I would say take a screenshot of this, print it out, start looking at it, use this to communicate with your clients. If you're an LPL advisor, you can look at this and you can say, okay, well, beforehand, pretty much everything was on the MSP, and that makes sense. There's one throat to choke, as they say. But now there's this weird gap on who's responsible for what, how did things actually play out. It just makes a total mess of things. So there is a legitimate issue here. Now, what I've heard, one MSP and their client, they pushed back, they had no luck. So the feedback from that was, hey, you can keep your current MSP, but they can't use NinjaRMM. So if you're an MSP using that and you're trying to keep an LPL client, now you might have to go learn a whole new RMM and sign the contract and do all this wacky stuff. It's not as easy as it sounds for those advisors out there. They said you can keep your own security tools, but you don't have to. Now, the translation, what I'm hearing reading through all these comments was, hey, your MSP, they're going to keep all those contractual responsibilities for the endpoints, but they're going to lose control of key layers on a timeline they did not agree to. Not a good look. Now, the contract problem fundamentally, if you're an MSP, you're going from ideally you have a signed and updated MSA SOW to now this forced, ham-fisted, co-managed environment. That's a material change that your MSP did not agree to, and it is just being foisted upon you, and there's probably not a lot you can do as an MSP to change the mind of this, trillion-dollar asset company. Now, patch management EDR on you. Well, if the contract remains, even if LPL took away the functions, there's a real question there on, well, hey, your contract said you're responsible for it. Well, yeah, LPL took away that ability, but your contract says you got to start thinking like this. The MSP who survived this, who kept a client, they had leverage due to long-term contracts. Now, if you don't have a signed MSA, if you don't have contracts, you're going to have a lot less leverage here, and that is going to change the dynamic. So you need to keep that in mind. Next, will you change your scope? So please get your MSA attorney on the phone and ask him about this co-managed agreement. They are vastly different from a standard MSA. You really, pardon my French, it's about 1 a.m. as I'm recording this. You need to get down to the gnat's ass on who is doing what and who is responsible for what, because you do not just want to wing this or use AI. You know who you are if you're watching this. Please don't do that. You don't just want to use AI and hope that this works out, because someone's going to get seriously burned here. Now, don't be liable for these unpatched software vectors when you've been pushed out of patch management. That's insane. LPL advisors, pull that contract, review the tech and identification clause before Q3. Ideally, when you watch this, pause the video, go pull that contract, send it to your MSP. Now, basic liability scenario. So let's say LPL pushes some NinjaOne update. That conflicts with your MSP's tech stack. This causes an outage or some type of data exposure. Now the client's calling you. They're going, hey, tech guy, my stuff's not working. And you're sitting there going, well, I don't even have full oversight of your environment anymore. I have no idea what's going on. But you're on the contract. You didn't push that change. How does this get fixed? You as an MSP, who are you supposed to call to roll back that update or figure out what's going on? I have no idea. And then fundamentally, as the insurance guy here, I'm asking, who's going to pay for those losses? If LPL is saying they're only on the hook for $1,000, if my understanding there is correct, and that's the most updated contract, not fun. Now, the heart of the issue is, like I said, I believe LPL's max liability is $1,000, and they have very strict limitations of liability. Does your MSP already have a signed MSA SOW, and what does that say? Does your client have cyber insurance? Because I didn't want to nerd out too hard at 1 a.m. Or burn you on a Thursday morning as you're watching this. But effectively, your MSA and their contract both agree, hey, we're not responsible for this corpus of stuff that could occur. Now there's a gap there in a co-managed environment. If your client doesn't have cyber insurance, that is a massive exposure that could come back and really bite you in the ass at the end of the day. So who is easier to go after? Who do you think your client's going to sue? Do you think they're going to sue LPL, this multi-trillion-dollar corporation, or do you think that they're going to sue your MSP? Well, if I had to put money on one in a breach scenario after some type of cyber event, I would say, well, your MSP is going to be on the hook there. Now, on that note, do you have appropriate tech E&O that will cover co-managed claim situations? If you go back to that rubric that I asked you to print out earlier, I would tell you if you're doing co-managed, the cost of litigation is higher. The sophistication of litigation is higher. You could be dealing with multiple defense teams and multi-jurisdiction type things, and it's just a total mess. When you start dealing with co-managed, it is very difficult to unwind who is ultimately responsible for what. That means costs of claims go up. That means the time to restore clients, that's going to go way up as well, which means there's more money going out the door. All of that is to say, if you're going to keep doing this, you need to take a hard look at your tech E&O limits of liability. Now, for your MSPs, here's what I think you should consider doing right now. Audit your client list for any LPL affiliated advisors. Pull your MSA. Here are some key clauses that you can go through with your attorney. Approved software list, change management authority, security stack ownership, liability for third-party caused outages and breaches, and you need to figure out, hey, can my contract even be changed? Is this something that you pasted together, pulling a couple MSAs from different people over the years? You may not be in a good spot. So there should be language in there that your attorney can assist you with to say, hey, when this thing totally outside of our control occurs, we need to be able to change the contract because this really is a material change in what you're going to be doing. Now, have a conversation before your client installs anything. You need to front run this. And keep in mind, as you're communicating with the client, you're protecting them. You're not fighting LPL. You are not going to win the battle fighting LPL. So position yourself as, hey, client, let me help you figure out the best way to do this to keep your environment as safe as possible. That's what we're trying to do. Contact LPL. I'll put details in the description so you can give them the business, as it were. And they're going to have office hours. So please get answers on record. Find out, hey, who's responsible for this? Allegedly, there's some Texas MSP that's doing this, and there's only like a dozen people or so, which, you know, for 32,000 advisors doesn't seem like a pretty good ratio. But get all this stuff on record. That's going to help you later on. I think for all you forward-leaning MSPs out there, start beating their doors down to figure out who's responsible. Who is this alleged other MSP? Is there some type of referral structure here? What is actually going on, and who's going to pay that bill? Continuing, reach out to your attorney, review your MSA SOW, modify as necessary for this new co-managed type situation. You want to document and identify in writing to the client any functions that you are handing off. Get with your attorney to assist you there. If you already have NinjaRMM, you're in a tough spot. I'm really sorry for you. And then finally, the ultimate question I think here is, are you going to keep this client? Is there a possibility that your MSA says, hey, if you're going to do this, you got to buy out our contract and move forward? Or are you in a position where you need that MRR, you got to keep it, even if it's less than what you had before? I would urge you, co-managed situations are no joke, especially this type of co-managed situation. This looks like a train wreck in the making for a multitude of reasons. So I would urge you never to let a client's risk tolerance exceed your own. If they're totally cool with it and you're freaking out, hey, that's okay. You might want to terminate that relationship. All right. But ultimately, that's going to be up to you. It just depends on your MSP. So you might have some MSP a town away with the exact same tech stack and the exact same client base, and everything's exactly the same, but you are sitting there going, I'm not comfortable with this. This is not a risk I'm willing to take. The guy in the other town, he may be totally comfortable with it. That's okay. All right. But your business is your baby. Now, on that note, if you actually do need an attorney here, check out CRD and Aston, lawyers for the situation. I know that they have co-managed agreements. And if you're just looking for, hey, I just need something right now, check out xclause.com. All right, guys, with that, hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm going to leave some comments in the description below so you can go beat down the doors of LPL. If you click right above me, here is another video to assist you. And over there, If you click on my face, you can subscribe to my channel. All right, guys, with that, stay safe. I'm going to bed.